Tyler Feeney. Tyler is a graduate from Smith College with a BS in engineering science and a minor in environmental science and policy. At Smith, she was captain in the softball team while working as a research assistant qualifying pollutant removal using natural water systems. Tyler also interned for SDE Engineering, conducting I&I and IDDE inspections in the greater Boston area. This winter, I'm going to read what it says. This winter, you'll be able to find Tyler on the ski mountains.
The water and wastewater industry is facing an existential problem. While the mere sound of this can sound fairly dramatic, the issue at hand is getting worse and worse every day. The most important assets in our water industry are getting old and deteriorating, and there's no amount of money in a capital improvement budget plan that will replace these rapidly aging assets. The situation is dire, yet is there hope? And what is the problem, you may ask? Your operators, the most important part of our industry, are retiring at a rapid rate, and we are not replacing them at a rate that is sustainable for the future. Now, some of you may be rolling your eyes at the cliche of retiring operators being a crisis in the industry, but with a closer look at the consequences of inaction, you will see that the issue is bigger than ever-increasing water quality standards on small budgets. With 37% of water and 31% of wastewater workers retiring in the next 10 years, or for one of us, 2 years, 5 months, and 8 days, this issue is bigger than our crumbling infrastructure. If unemployment rates are any indication, there are plenty of jobs in the economy, and the water and wastewater industry is no different. Normally, putting ads in the classifieds or the local NUIA job bank and hiring people would be the usual solution that most would think of. Unfortunately, this is a changing job market with very different challenges than the industry has seen before. This presentation is called Infusing Youth into the Water and Wastewater Industry, but this is not simply a presentation that says, hire young people, problem solved. As you can see, I am not a wastewater operator with 30 years of experience, but I'm one of the first Gen Z members that's going to be giving a formal presentation like this. And what I can provide is a look into the minds of young people today and give a perspective on what we are looking for in the involvement in our workplace. Like most things, this problem of a rapidly aging workforce is not a simple one. This multi-pronged issue touches upon every facet of our industry. In the last 15 to 20 years, the way facilities have been run in the water and wastewater industry have been evolving. The processes that have been tried and true and have been proven to be very effective are still in place, but the 21st century tech has made the process more efficient, more accurate, and much more real-time. Gone are the days where manually turning valves was efficient. We now have complex technical systems that dictate the intricacies of a plant like never before. Digital analyzers have replaced hourly bench testing, and SCADA systems are giving operators up-to-the-minute readings that dictate process improvements. This changes the role of our operators from a button pusher and a valve turner to now a complex system analyzer. Now, within the last few years, the industry has trended towards computerized management systems becoming mandatory. Mobile data management systems are more commonplace, and databases are essential for historical data storage and trending. All of this is critical for operations today and will only expand in the near future. According to a 2010 Government Accountability Office poll, 25% of our water industry is over 55. This loss of institutionalized knowledge can be catastrophic to the operation of any facility. The concept of brain drain is not lost on those who work in our industry. An expert operator understands the sights, the sounds, the smell, and the maintenance needs of their facility in an innate sense. This relationship can often be like one will have with a spouse or significant other. When they leave, so does all that knowledge that they have, and we can't learn everything through our books and our own manuals. With the introduction of computer management computer maintenance management systems, some of the loss can be mitigated by digital SOPs, automatic maintenance schedule, and asset maintenance records. When an operator has been operating their facility for 30 years one way, and they all of a sudden have this giant new upgrade where you implement a SCADA system and tablets and a CMMS system, if they're not motivated to learn this new tech, they could walk out the door and retire. What we need to understand is all this technology that we're putting in, will only give us the benefits as long as we're putting in great information. And for that, we need to have our experienced operators there. There needs to be an understanding that implementing this tech will not replace our experienced operators, and we need to find a way to get new experienced operators once these older ones are retiring. When you have a collection of decision makers with a very similar background and experience, groupthink can settle in. Over history, human nature has shown us that groupthink can be truly detrimental to the operation of any facility or business. A couple examples of groupthink in our own history have been ignoring the warnings from Washington, D.C. and the attack on Pearl Harbor, brushing off early car trends in the automotive industry in the 70s, or failing to see banking turmoil in 2007 and 2008. Groupthink is truly horrible for the success of any operation of any business and organization. And this is much more applicable to our industry than you may think on first hand. The definition of groupthink is listed above, but the way I like to think about it is having a massive set of blinders to concept and ideas that aren't generated in your own circle. Yet, when we have one demographic, specifically an aging demographic, in our industry, we see a stifling of creativity. And in our industry, this creativity manifests itself in the adaptation of new technology. And that technology is the well-mentioned SCADA system, CMMS mobile data management, and et cetera. Our plants often run status quo until there is a problem, a mandate, or a large shakeup in leadership with new blood. And this new blood usually is younger or has a more forward way of thinking, but oftentimes it has both. Everyone remembers a time when the only way to get home from a faraway bar was calling a cab, but now we have Uber and Lyft on all of our cell phones. While we can debate the business practices of this new technology, we cannot debate its effectiveness. And the way that these new tech has totally upended the automotive industry is huge. And this is very similar to the way that tech has been influencing our industry as well. The next issue that comes from an aging workforce is staffing issues. Simply having a warm body at our plant does not mean we have an experienced operator by any means. And it's becoming more and more difficult for us to find experienced operators and replace them. Now, automation has helped this issue temporarily, but it's a Band-Aid for a larger problem that we're seeing. Also, that elimination of the third shift and putting operators onto an earlier shift can only take us so far. We need to find young, passionate operators and invest in them for the future success of our industry. Also, we need to find operators who are willing to learn and utilize technology and implement them in our existing systems. Now, I'm not the first, and I'm definitely not the last person that's going to hammer home these ideas, and I'm sure this isn't the first time you've been hearing them. But what I want to talk about is how we can recruit and get more young, talented people into our industry and some methods we can use to achieve that. So up on the screen, I have a tale of two operators. This is Mike and Kenny from our Boston area plants. And Mike is new to the industry, and he's no substitution for 20 to 30 years of experience that Kenny may have, but Mike has a lot of other great qualities that aren't an entire career ahead of him or time that can make him a really great operator and an amazing addition to our industry. Young people today have new ideas and a new energy, and they can make your workplace feel totally different when you step in the door every day. Young people today, also as mentioned earlier by a previous presentation, they're growing up with tech in their hands, and almost everyone has an iPhone. 94% of 18 to 29-year-olds and 89% of 30 to 49-year-olds are using smartphones. And in the next few years, those Gen Zers that you're hiring will have had an iPhone as their very first phone. Now, young people are great at adopting new technology to streamline their own lives, and this is second nature to them, and this can be a huge asset to us implementing technology in our own industry. While there are obvious challenges in meshing two very different demographics in any workplace, the water and wastewater industry is uniquely equipped to handle them because we're in the process of implementing all this new tech. In the middle of teaching older operators who have run their facilities sans technology for so many years how to use this new tech, it's a natural time to bring in new people and also teach them the same processes. Now, some operators have welcomed this new tech and some have been a little slow to warm up to it. While younger people may know tech, what they don't know is the basics of operating a facility and the intricacies that all of our experienced operators bring. What we need is for younger people to come in and help ease that transition of technology with our experienced operators and our older operators to take these younger folks under their wing and show them the ins and outs of their plants. Mike and Kenny from my previous side need each other in order to reach their true potential as an operator. And we need a lot more Mikes in this industry before all of our Kennys retire. These two tasks aren't so different. Whether it be learning tech or learning an activated sludge system, you can only learn so much from an operations manual, and eventually you just need to use it to learn it. This multifaceted experience is essential to attaining competency in both operations and tech, and this is a great way we can tie these two demographics together, making both young and experienced operators much better at their jobs. But tech is coming into our industry a little slower than we may like, and many rural plants have little to no automation. These antiquated plants are probably not hotbeds for young, energetic, and tech-savvy applicants. So how can we reframe this work for a way that'll entice young people to want to see a career in our water industry? Now, if you're looking to hire new folks, the person sitting in your chair probably grew up watching Jersey Shore rather than the Brady Bunch, but that doesn't mean that a millennial or a Gen Zer is an entirely new species compared to a baby boomer or Gen X. But what we can learn from this is if we understand the needs and wants of this new demographic, then we'll have a better chance of bringing them into our industry and recruiting them against other operating professions. A great example of this are two postings for a wastewater driver. The first reads that we are seeking a reliable and hardworking pump truck driver. The position is responsible for residential and commercial pumping and disposal of non-hazardous waste. The applicant must have a Class A or B CDL and a clean driving record. Previous pump truck or general vacuum experience is beneficial but not required. Now, this is a fairly basic ad and something we'd see coming out of our industry all the time. But what I'd like to show you is another ad I found recently on the internet that kind of puts a nice spin on it. Some brewery is seeking an off-centered, full-time wastewater driver to join our awesome wastewater team during our busy season. You'll help keep our wastewater moving from our brewery to the fields for land application to ensure our beer can be continuously made. You'll ensure wastewater removal takes place in a timely, efficient, documented, and compliant manner. You'll also monitor vehicle systems to guarantee fitness for use and constant removal on time, as well as tracking vehicle maintenance schedules and performing minor routines maintenance services. Hay flourishes on our land apply fields, and you'll help support the processing of it. You'll be on top of your game, maintaining and updating detailed application logs and other required paperwork for the wastewater program. You'll also perform other basic maintenance duties as requested, including cleaning and pitching and so on. If this sounds like your kind of seasonal work, then we cannot wait to hear from you. And the next section is called What You Need to Land This Gig, and it has at least 2 more exclamation points in it. Now, this second job may be for a brewery, and there might be a promise of free beer in there hidden, but it's a much worse job than the first one. It's seasonal, and it pays way less. But with a few strategic language choices, this can sound way more enticing to young people. And so if we can find small ways to spice up our ads in the classifieds, it can make a huge difference in our hiring process. And I promise you don't need 5 exclamation points in your ad to hire a millennial. But this shows that the younger generation can be coaxed to the same job if we change that framework and the language around it a little differently. Many have been debating what drives millennials and Gen Zers like me in regards to career and spending habits in the last decade. Millennials, 1981 to 1996, and Gen Zers, 1997 to now, have distinct differences in our approach to career and spending habits. But to think that our wants and needs are drastically different than previous generations is to far overcomplicate the matter. In order to infuse our industry, we need a better idea of what they're looking for to ensure plants are well-staffed for the future. And so I wanted to bring up a few key goals that I know me and my other millennials share, and that's stuff that we're really looking for in our workforce. And so those are to make an impact in our industry, to have flexibility, to have security, and to have growth opportunities. Now, a lot of this should sound pretty familiar because it's common goals that everyone wants out of their job or their operations. And so when you have only, a recent Gallup poll shows us that only 3 in 10 millennials are engaged in that workforce. So if we look at that other 70%, maybe we can find more ways to get them engaged if we motivate them in a proper way. Young people today demand to be challenged to make a difference in the world and to be compensated fairly for their work, and this is something that we can achieve fairly easily with a couple different shifts. While we may know the importance of all of our operators, many young people have no idea. In an age of climate change, young people today are looking for work where they feel inspired and that they're making a real difference in the world. There's this quote I heard a few weeks ago that all water operators combined save more lives every day than all doctors in the world combined. And I think that puts a good idea of the work that we're doing for water quality and how important it is for our communities. Our water and wastewater industry is of huge importance to the goals of a clean and safe environment and community. And without our operators, there would be huge impacts on the closing of recreational waters, our habitats and wildlife would be destroyed, and human health would be at a huge risk. I know this impact was a huge selling point for me when I was joining the water and wastewater industry. I actually learned what a CSO was in elementary school, so our school bus would pick us up and we'd drive down by the river every day, and after a huge rainfall, we'd all have to run to the windows and throw them up to make sure the smell wouldn't get in. And so people have really visceral interactions with water and they care a lot about it. If we can tap into some of this passion, we can recruit a lot of young operators today, and we can show them that what they're doing is important and meets this goal of wanting to make a difference in the world in a small, manageable way. Flexibility is exceedingly important for all members of the workforce. And one of the biggest gripes that recent college graduates have is trying to maintain some form of a work-life balance. While it's true that some plants are still running 3 shifts a day, many have shifted to 1, whether that be a 6 to 2 or a 7 to 3. And while there is a stereotype that young people can't get up in the morning, but these early hours allow for us to have a life, to relax, or join some recreational pickup league that we've been looking at. Studies have shown that Americans tend to be in the upper echelon of industrialized nations in hours worked per year. And to prevent some of this burnout, a positive work-life balance is essential, and the water and wastewater industry can provide this if we remain well-staffed. It's vital to emphasize that you can have a great work-life balance in our industry, and it will be a huge selling point for young people today. The third factor that's important to job or career satisfaction, security, is a critical factor as to whether a person will stay or even enter a field. With many millennials and Gen Zers growing up through the 2008 financial crisis, financial and job security are exceedingly important to them. This, on top of an ever-growing student debt crisis, has shown us that young people are looking for new ways to break into the economy. While it helps to have a formal tertiary degree, either a tech degree, an associate's, or a bachelor's, it's not mandatory, and there are not many jobs that you can break into and earn a living wage without racking up close to $100,000 of debt these days. These factors are important at giving young people a leg up on their peers who go to a 4-year institution and have a tougher time breaking into this economy. It should be noted that while I think our operators have a sweet gig, they're paid significantly less than operators in other fields. On this figure, the green highlight is water and wastewater operators, on average making $46,000 a year, and then if you look at boiler plant operators, they're making around $60,000, and power plant operators are making $75,000. If we can find a way to bridge that gap a little bit, we will be able to get more operators into our industry to start rather than these other ones. The last goal I want to talk about today is growth. The water industry needs to ask itself, are we showing this new demographic a path that they're interested in? And is this path that we've identified for them too far out in advance to motivate them for right now in the present? These are important things that a young person wants to know if they're going to invest in an industry, that the industry is going to turn around and invest in them as well. Right now, our industry often provides and even mandates continuing education, and that can be in the form of certifications, degrees, or other continuing education. And oftentimes this is compensated by our employers. Now, maybe a young operator doesn't want to be a chief operator someday, but they want to be a project manager or a consultant or a DPW worker and someday a DPW director. We need to show them that it is possible to have growth and maybe change your career path in the water industry a little bit, but still being able to break in as a young operator. It's up to the industry, both public and private, to make these new pathways. So if a young person leaves, what they can do through word of mouth is get one of their friends to apply or get interested in the industry because they can talk about their extremely positive experience that they had. In summary, there's some immediate goals and some long-term action items that we can look at in order to recruit young people into our industry today. In terms of short-term goals, we can change how we market positions with language shifts and some simple modes of communication. And then once these seats are filled, once these seats are filled with interviewees, we can show them and highlight how all of the different facets that they're looking for in their career, we're already meeting those goals in a lot of different ways, but they just don't know it. If we can better communicate that to young people today, we will have a much easier job recruiting young operators. And then in the long term, if we can provide more competitive packages as compared to operators in other fields and create new career pathways so employees feel like they have different options and room for further growth and improvement, we'll have a much easier time keeping those young operators in our industry as well. Now, as a reminder, I wanted to bring up those 4 goals that I discussed earlier and hammer home, these are things we are doing really well right now, and we need to do a better job of showing these to young people today. And so for impact, we're doing a great job of making sure that our environmental health and community support is always there. There's great flexibility in which you can maintain a really positive work-life balance. There's great job security, and it's a union profession as well as a possible pension, and that there will be growth in the industry, and there's always avenues for continuing education if this is something you're interested in. Finally, the water industry should emphasize that young talent is needed to implement this new technology and that they can bring this field to the 21st century. SCADA and CMMS systems are the future, and the younger generation will have a leg up because they come in with an inherent understanding of how to use technological systems. Allowing them to take some ownership of this and give them the responsibility that they really want to have, it keeps them engaged because new technology is always being introduced and evolving. This responsibility also allows younger operators to really buy into this experience and stay within our industry. This also gives us the opportunity to build some rapport between more experienced and younger operators so that we can have a better link between the 2 generations when retirement comes. The water and wastewater field provide careers for over 100,000 operators across the country, and it's a vital piece of the pie in infrastructure. It's important to them, it's important to the environment, and essential to our quality of lives. The industry is evolving and progressing more and more every year, and it's important that its best asset, the people that work in it, are evolving with it as well. Focusing on what the industry provides both younger and experienced people will only make it better. And this bringing of new ideas and perspectives that will allow us to grow and excel in an ever-changing environment. This concludes my presentation, and I would like to open the floor up for questions.